the country to have an almost 80-year-old former president go to prison.
So that's a yes.
It doesn't seem like it would be a good thing. And I look at, like, you know, Ford pardoned Nixon, took some heat for it, but at the end of the day, it's like, do we want to move forward as a country, or do we want to be mired in these past controversies?
So, Dean, how is that as a general election message to the country after going through what will probably be a very difficult primary and general election with Donald Trump?
Well, first of all, I don't think Ron DeSantis will be making that. He has no shot at this nomination. He's gotten weaker, it seems, by the day. If Ron DeSantis wants to get some traction in the GOP, apparently, to get the base excited, he should commit some crimes. Maybe knock over a liquor store, rob a bank. Donald Trump has 74 felonies right now. Ron DeSantis has none. So Ron DeSantis go up, incite an attack on a neighboring state like Georgia, their capital. Maybe you'll get people. The idea of pardoning, like we're going to move on. Imagine that sentiment after 9/11. Oh, we're just like bin Laden. Let's just move on as a nation. We had a terrorist attack on our capital. January 6th was an act of domestic terrorism. That's what FBI Director Christopher Wray testified the attack was. Everybody involved in that attack has to be held accountable. We don't move on. We hold people accountable so it never happens again. That's the important point. Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. If you're a president, you attempt a coup, you incite a terrorist attack, you must go to prison. And I think you should spend your last days in prison, not to be cruel, but as a message to anyone, even a Democratic demagogue in the future. You can't do this and get away with it because we believe in this democratic republic. And I wish Republicans would join that. Let's protect our republic and move on and fight over policy.
Brianne, we've got about 20 seconds or so left. Tim?
I want to say something in response to what they're talking about here. They're talking about order. They're talking about a frame of order that each country, each nation, each state here in the United States, each community has to conduct themselves under. Now, if the primary argumental principles are the fact of what kind of order, okay, if that's where we're at right now as a society, well, we can look at our order for the past 30 plus years and how the things used to be a long time ago that I know a lot of people have read about or can remember. Maybe some of them can't remember, I don't know. Maybe you was raised up in a corrupt area, maybe it was a bad area to begin with that really didn't have no good life to begin with, I don't know. But I personally can remember whenever there was stability in not only our community, but stability in our nation and stability within the world. That was the form of order that took place after World War II, that our ancestors took a big part of in creating one of the greatest nations in the world out of order. Now, today, we're still under order, but it's a chaotic order. It's an order that has basically made our laws on our books look disgraceful, and it's an order of unconsciousness, of unjustfulness based upon a buddy system. And that's not the type of order that I can read our ancestors in having the Constitution. The Constitution hasn't changed, or it's not supposed to have. And there was a really strong reasoning in behind that type of order. And it's as if society don't want that type of order no more. Okay, well, if you don't want that type of order, then you get the order that we're under right now, which is $33 trillion, all the illegals coming over the border, all the fentanyl, all the other kind of drug activity, all the rapes, all the murders, all the illegitimacies going on in our courts, our jails being full, and I could go on and on and on. about the form of order that we are under right now. This is the reason why that I say and have said, in which I had somebody recently argue the point about the State of the Union, saying that it wasn't the State of the Union that was fighting the South. I'm very aware of that. The State of the Union is basically the formation of both bodies coming together that forms the State of the Union. But it was still the Union that wanted to come down to the South and basically tell them how the cow was going to eat the cabbage, because they had more education, because they had more guns, because they had more of this, more of that. It was them that wanted to come down to the South and dominate and run over the rights of the Confederacy Southerners. That happened, what? Give or take around 200 years ago? Because we're here this year, I think it's the 248th anniversary. 2 more years from now, we'll be 250 years old, going all the way back to 1776, pertaining to the Revolutionary War. We've let them, or we didn't actually let them, we sat back and tolerated them in them doing what that they done. Because they said they had more education, because they said they had more bullets, because they said they had more institutions, because they said they had more colleges, because they said they had more manufacturing plants up north. We've sat back now for the past few years, and we have seen what has happened. Which is what? Total chaos. Now let's go back to what this individual just got through saying about Donald Trump and not putting a president in jail compared to justice versus injustice. And now let's go back a little bit further pertaining to true justice, true order, in regards towards the retaliation of the heavenly kingdom that kicked, booted the evil demonic spirits that was causing a uprising in the heavenly kingdom to the degree that they was kicked out. That basically, according to the Bible, there was war in heaven. There's a reason why that there was war in heaven. You know why that there was a reason why that there was war in heaven? It's got to do with order. And it's got to do with accountability and justice. And whenever we reach the point, either here in America or Israel or in any other Christian society, whenever we reach the point that we are no longer concerned about that order, then we must accept the fact that what comes after that is the consequences of not being within that grade of order. Now, there's no doubt we have gotten so far out of order. You're going to have to go in and reconstruct, re-reform our very institutions to get this back into play of where it was supposed to have been way before Ronald Reagan ever become president, and Bush and JFK and Nixon and Carter and all the rest of them. You're going to have to go back and re-reform. Of course, that's going to mean you're going to have to violate some of those principles that you've already done established. And you may be saying, what kind of principles have we established? Well, at one time, we used to get our asses tore up in school whenever we got smart mouth or whenever we decided to be defiant with the teacher or the principal. Today, I don't guess you can even discipline a child that way, the way I understand it. And as far as I'm concerned, that method needs to be brought back. I don't agree with anybody abusing children, and I don't agree with spanking a child on no other area other than their rear ends that was meant, as far as I'm concerned, to not only set on, but to get your attention on. And whenever we have pulled away from these primary principles that help to keep that order, once more, what's the consequences? We are now facing those consequences on chaotic activity on a day-to-day level. And that's exactly what the Luciferian Lucifer, those that followed after Lucifer in the spirit world, that's exactly what they intended to bring to the Homo sapiens down here on the planet. They decided that if they couldn't win over the heavenly kingdom by overtaking the heavenly kingdom, well, we'll just overtake the Homo sapiens on the world to the point that we'll bring destruction into their lives like we have brought destruction into our own. And it's only been because of a merciful God that has sat back and looked at this and scratched his head about this and realizing just exactly what type of plot has been planned for not just the humans but also for the heavenly kingdom, going all the way back to who drawed first blood on who. Once more, we're dealing with accountability. And it's only been up until just recently, I guess COVID has helped to open a lot of people's eyes and understanding, you know what? We really was way out in left field, wasn't we? I don't know. I think it was that movie that said, Don't Look Up or something like that, that we really had it all. You know, if we continue down this endless path of chaos, I hate to say it, but that's exactly what's going to happen to us all. We're going to look at one another one day and out of regret, and we're going to say, you know what? We really did have it all, didn't we? And one day, Lucifer himself is going to stare in the face of the Lord Jesus Christ himself. And he's going to say, regrettably, before God takes him and drags him off into an endless pit of fire, where he will be tormented day and night and day, he's going to look at himself and he's going to admit that there was a time that we, or I, had it all. You've got to be able to look through the underlining areas and understanding what's happening to us, where we are because of where we are, what has occurred, why it occurred, etc., etc. And if you can't read in between the lines towards what has happened, going all the way back to the Sphinx and the Mayans and the Neanderthals, if you can't formulate the right reality in your mind towards all of that, then either you're still blinded or you're incapable of understanding these things to begin with. And that's one of the reasons why that we put our faith in those that we pay the most, that we put our faith in those that's considered professionals, or put our faith in those that's considered deans or professors or whatever. We put our faith in the professional industry because these are the people that was smarter than us, that claimed that they were smarter than us, that professed that they were smarter than us, and that's the reason why that we gave them the reins to let them lead the way. Kind of like what the South done in the formation of the Civil War by saying, okay, we've already reached the decision here of self-destruction, so you got more bullets, you got more of this, you got more of that, go ahead and lead the way. Well, we see where that has led in the past 200 years, or right around 200 years. They led the way. What does the Bible say about the blind leading the blind? It says if the blind lead the blind, they both will leadeth off into the ditch. If you are not intelligent enough to realize that this great nation has made some serious mistakes to the degree that now we're all paying the consequences on account of, then obviously either you're still deceived, blinded, or you're incapable of seeing these things, or you actually support these things that are occurring right now. You support rapes. You support robberies. You support all our jobs going south. You support our politicians being crooked. You support our courts being unjust. You support all the illegal immigrants coming over to the border. You support us being trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. You support all this chaos going on in all these major cities, to the point of San Francisco, where the Golden Gate Bridge is basically turning into nothing but a big slum, because the powerful people, the wealthy people, are basically leaving and going elsewhere. I was told last night in Dyersburg, Tennessee, in Walmart, while I was in there, by this female. I asked her, I said, do y'all have a lot of theftery in here? She said, we absolutely do. She said, we have a lot of theftery down here. I go, why can't you stop it? She goes, because we're not legally entitled to stop a theftery. I go, what are you talking about? She said, the other day, somebody walked back to the boot area, took their old boots, put them to the side, and put on a brand new pair of boots worth about $40, $50, tied the shoelaces up, and started walking out. He was under surveillance. They stopped him at the door. They stopped him at the door and said, sir, you need to pay for that before you walk out. And the guy looked at him and said, huh, and kept walking out and got in his automobile and left, because there was not a PO on duty that had the authority to stop the individual that was walking out with a $50 pair of boots. And I asked her, I said, so whenever something like that occurs, y'all basically just got to stand back and just watch it occur? She said, yep. I go, well, what's corporate say about that? She said, corporate, once a store loses so much money in an area, she said it's nothing uncommon for Walmart to shut that store down. And that store can be shut down for various reasons, regardless whether it's theftery, regardless whether it's not being managed properly pertaining to profitability, or maybe the building was put on a bad area to the point that the ground is causing tremendous damage to the building. I mean, I was up in Kentucky this year, way north of Hopkinsville, Kentucky, about an hour's drive, visiting my friend, and they had a brand new Walmart that hadn't been built, but maybe 7-8 years, that basically was sitting there dormant, empty. And the reason why is because they built it on a landfill and they didn't take notice of where they was building it, and now the foundation is cracking and beams is buckling and everything else inside the building, and they had to basically abandon the building, mark it as a loss, and go to the opposite side of town and build another building to have a Walmart. So there's various reasons why Walmart shuts down their building, and one of those reasons is theftery. But the point that I'm trying to make is order. Whenever you no longer have order, and there's all kinds of different orders, there's not just judicial order, there's common sense order, there's structural order, there's moral order, there's all kinds of different orders that all come together in a formula that can either make a great nation successful or make it unsuccessful, pertaining to a democratic, free, fair, open republic. I almost said union, but rather than say State of the Union, pertaining to all two groups, I'll just say Republican. You have to have the formula, and each one enhances the other. And whenever you no longer have that structure beginning on a local level, pertaining to building communities, people working together, not fighting at one another's throat towards seeing who can choke the other one out the quickest or the hardest, but you have to work together as a community. And whenever you're no longer doing that, as Christ said, he that was not for me is against me. And it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to live it. And I feel like that's where not so much the politicians has let our communities down, but that's where our preachers have let the communities down, because they was preaching it, but they wasn't living it. In other words, they wasn't practicing what they was preaching. And whenever you have that going on for a certain length of time, and enough pillars start falling out of the community, and enough people get blinded towards what the devil is actually doing, then you have chaos. And that's exactly what happened to Rome, is that they did not take notice in the damages that was occurring to their structure, to their political structure, until it was too late. And then once they realized that it was too late, then Rome fell. And that's exactly what's going to happen to the American government if we do not wake up, smell the crap that people's been walking in now for the past 25, 30 plus years, and try to reverse this in a logical, practical, common form. And if we don't, heaven help us all is all I got to say. May God have mercy on all of us is all I got to say.
Not just got on the stage. How was the response to him? What has he said real quick that's rousing the crowd there?
Well, he is someone who really tends to play up his faith in his life, and that really speaks to Iowa evangelicals. So I think we'll hear more of that tonight.
See, that's another thing. There's a difference in evangelicals pertaining to the church world and our political world. And really and truly, whenever they say separation between church and state, that's what they're talking about, that the government is supposed to be run a certain way and the churches are supposed to be run a certain way. Okay? And I'm not saying that the churches should not have an influence on the government affairs, because they should. But we're going to have good, honest people to stand up and say, you know what? If we continue down this path, this is what's going to happen to us. And obviously, people didn't want to hear that back 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 plus years ago, whenever people such as myself was talking to people about the sin and about the wickedness, and also about the things that they was compromising on, regardless whether it was not being able to discipline your children, or paddle your children in school, or taking the Ten Commandments out of the courthouses, or taking God completely out of our school system. COVID has opened the eyes of the people in understanding that we had this thing on automatic pilot for too long, and now people are starting to realize it. Have we went over the precipice to the point that we can no longer return back? Have we went through the Rubicon to the point that we're basically doomed? No, I don't believe that for a second. And I truly believe that God will continue to bless this nation as a godly nation if we will turn and do the proper things on the church perspective. Now, the government perspective, they're going to have to tighten the reins on what they do and how they do it. And to mix match the two, in between the two, is really and truly one of the areas that has got the American government in trouble And it's got to do with being lukewarm. It's got to do with trying to have your cake and eat it too. In other words, if you're going to be a government official, that's good that you have a religious faith, regardless whether you believe in Buddha or Jesus or whoever. That's good that you have religious faith. But whenever it comes to you doing your job, you obviously have not been doing your jobs. Because crime is exceeding above and beyond all horrible expectations. Not counting the people that has let us down in not being able to stand true to the system that our ancestors had already created over here, and now all of a sudden we started getting bought out. They gave the farm away, man. Walmarts, Kmart's, all these other big retail stores started going overseas and getting stuff over there because it was cheaper. It was cheaper. Okay? So we got a country out of 336 million people, half of them got all these trinkets, and half of them's got all these little whatnots in their houses and in their homes. But yet now you drive down the road, and the little towns that used to have thriving factories and labor has now dried up and is dead, and the buildings just sitting there dormant, or buildings are sitting there dormant, and now they have turned themselves into retirement centers, bedroom communities, people sitting around drawing a free check, thinking that Uncle Sam is not going to have to reinvent himself, because there's no way that Uncle Sam is going to be able to pay Peter back for trying to keep Paul going. And I got news for you. That sense of reality is not a reality, my friends. That is a delusion. And if you think that we can continue on this path that we have been on for the past 25, 30 plus years, and there's not going to be a payday one day, you really are psychologically, emotionally, chemically imbalanced. You really are. Regardless whether you got a lot of education, no education, poor, rich, pretty, bad looking, or whatever, you really are not in the real frame of reality if that's what you believe, that we can continue on this cycle that we're on.
All right, Dean Obadala, Brendan Buck, and Brianne Fonensteel, thank you all very, very much. We'll be right back.
So I just wanted to say that in response towards everything that's going on, because we have hit a plateau of damages in this country, in this great nation, like I have never ever begin to imagine in my lifetime. That I'm just afraid of the inedible, just like that poor girl that was working down there in Dyersburg Walmart that kept telling me that Walmart headquarters will not take on this for a long period of time, that eventually they will pick up stakes and they will move elsewhere. And to be quite honest with you, you really can't blame people for having that that attitude about themselves. If the people there at Walmart wasn't smart enough to identify the problems that was going on. Or it wouldn't matter in what department store. It wouldn't matter in what town. Just wanted to show you some of the repercussions of the work I've been doing out here, trying to work in the hot blazing sun. It's been difficult for me to work out here on the Purple Heart Memorial and not get too hot as a diabetic older person that has been traumatized physically, emotionally, and psychologically again and again and again. I'm getting to the end of my painting scheme for now, and what I'm doing towards going over these cinder railroad ties, towards sealing them off real good. And then I'm going to finish up. I got some plants and some stuff to put in the Purple Heart Memorial there, where all that'll be taken care of. But I'm just trying to make a point that going down this endless path that we're on right now will not last forever. And eventually, whenever it does finally give in, it will be a bad, bad day for not just America, but a bad, bad day for the world. Now, I want to show you something real quick right here before I let you go. Said it wasn't going to be that long. But I was over in Lowe's last night. Picked up a sign here. This wood right here, it's supposed to be in response towards taking a grill and cleaning it real good. I personally prefer a wire brush more so than a piece of wood. Okay. But some people prefer the wood. As I was purchasing this last night, or yesterday evening, in Walmart, I made reference to the fact that I was going to take this and take this metal piece out of it right there and possibly reform that a little bit, like maybe knocking that center edge right there off. But I made reference of the fact that whenever I was growing up as a child, that this was an object that our teachers and principals used to be able to maintain that order. Now today, they claim that this is unhumane. And which it is unhumane if it is abused by either a parent or a teacher or a principal in the wrong way. But which is worse, to neglect your responsibilities towards doing the proper thing in being able to maintain that order, or having the very form of order that we have right now, which is a form of nothing but total chaos. Which is worse? To neglect this order pertaining to paddling, or bringing this type of hellacious judgment upon to a great nation that used not function this way. Now I know by me putting out this video and people seeing this wood right here that used to be called a paddle. This was a paddle at one time. I know that whenever I put this out, there's going to be certain people that's going to despise it. But I also know that there'll be certain people that will embrace it because they know the things of what I'm talking about pertaining to order is nailing it on the head. So we're basically here today in 2023 having to make a decision about what would we rather have. Would we rather have the penalty of not doing things that we considered at one time towards being immoral? Or would we rather have what we have right now towards all the killings and the rapes and the murders and all the jobs leaving and all the theft-free and all the fentanyl and all the gun violence and et cetera, et cetera? It's just a matter of a few weeks before school is going to be opening up all over this country. And I guarantee you, regrettably, whenever it does, unless the school advisories and the principals and the truant officers and everybody else is really up on their game, we will see gun violence increase again pertaining to school violence. Because there's a certain group of people out there that could really care less whether or not they live or die. And to be quite honest with you, I really believe that a lot of these people that want to do something in a heinous, incredible, harsh way, that they have already reached the element in their life of giving up. They basically know that they're doomed because of whatever reasons that's going on in their lives. And because of it, they want to go out in a big blaze of glory. Whenever you have an attitude of a certain generation that's growing up right now, filling them full of all this paranormal Hollywood movie scripts and hate and bloody, gory stuff and all these endless video games that has affected their minds, you're going to have a society, listen to me, and this is sad to say this, you're going to have a society to where we as an adults are going to have to make a decision. And the decision will be a decision that will be similar towards what China had to do in the 1800s pertaining to them being infiltrated with heroin, that they basically had to go around and genocide their own people and bury mass graves just to be able to make a point that they was no longer going to put up with people on heroin. Now that isn't discussed and it's not promoted all that much in history or on TV, but it really did actually happen. And of course, by them doing what they done, you see how successful that they have become in the 20th century in comparing to the 19th century. Now we're in the 21st century. Now we have basically set back and allowed for China to become what China has become, because it was we, the people in America, especially the adults, the elders, that set back and basically helped them become what they are today. As strong as what they are today. Yes, the TV may have been cheaper. The shirt may have been a $5 shirt. Or those little trinkets that everybody's got in their closets or in their attics that most of them don't even hardly look at, much less use anymore. Yeah, we may have gotten all that stuff, but look what we had to pay in exchange for it. I don't believe in abusing children. And there are certain children out there, as well as adults, that has problems. And I realize that the only way of tempering these problems is probably through some sort of chemicals or some sort of major discipline. The fact of the matter is, we are at the crossroads. We, the people, will make our own destiny of it either getting worse or it getting better. And the only way that it's going to get better is that we're going to have to make some very, very stiff decisions in what we're going to tolerate and what we're not going to tolerate. And we're probably going to have to, no, it ain't no probably, we're going to have to make some adjustments in some of the things that we have done that we shouldn't have done, that now we're realizing the path that we have taken was the wrong path. Once more, the things that I'm talking about right now does not give anybody the right or the privilege of abusing any child. Because if anybody stands up to the children's rights towards not being abused, I'm one of the first ones that'll be right there on the front of the line, because I know what being abused is like. And I guess that's one of the reasons why that it really hurts me so much, is because my family had to go through so many compromising moments in not just being poor, but in dealing with the World War II scars that usually falls upon to our military, regardless whether it's American military or whatever. And to think that the people have turned on me pertaining to this godly message that God give me to give to them, and to think that they was willing to put me in the category of me being the monster, knowing the whole time that they was the monsters, speaks volumes about what type of people that I've been dealing with over here for the past 30 plus years. Now, I realize not everybody fits underneath this category, but whenever you've been doing something as long as I've been doing something, and you're still getting the same results, and you're still preaching the gospel coming out of the Bible, and people still are stiff-necked in not wanting to either hear you or support you or believe in you, then obviously you are dealing with a society similar towards what Noah was dealing with at the time, towards it being a doomed society. Now, if that is the path that the people want to continue to go down, well then there's nothing that I can do other than what I'm doing now, which is basically putting my messages out on social media platform, telling people what I'm doing, where I was at, what I was doing, when I was doing it, what was going on, being honest with the people, and letting them make their own decisions about me. And if they've already made up their minds that they're not going to support somebody like me, well then get ready for the alternative decision, which is decision of doom, decision of destruction. We live in a democracy, and I can't make people do the right thing. The only thing that I can do is put the gestures out there, and hopefully there'll be enough people that will have the intelligence or the capability of understanding the things that I'm telling them. And if not, I'll be able to wash my hands of all this and one day stand in front of God and say, God, I used this method. I tried to bring up this illustration. I used this example, that example. God, I just couldn't deal with them. And it's basically going to be the exact same thing that Jesus Christ said to the Heavenly Father whenever he went back up into heaven, and he explained to the heavenly kingdom in the spirit world that I'd done everything humanly possible during and at that time to be able to reform them people, and I could not reform them. In other words, that's whenever Jesus went up into the mountains and said, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, for I have gathered thee together as a hen would gather up her chicks, and ye would not listen. And ye would not listen. At that point in time is whenever Jesus Christ, I think, hit his low point. at that point in time was whenever Jesus Christ knew that what he was maybe possibly hoping for, which was a revolution or a revival, wasn't going to happen. And that he was going to be rejected by his own people to the point of being killed. But before they killed him, this is the point that I'm trying to make in all this. Before they actually killed him, during the time of his crucifixion, Jesus looked at those that was displaying mercy and sorrowful emotions and said, "Weep not for me, but weep for your children and your children's children and those who are going to be coming into the world." That was the primary reason why Jesus said that the day will come when they will say, "Blessed are the wombs that never bear." That the day will come, as you shall see the days approaching, that no flesh shall be saved, but because of the elect whom God has chosen, those days will be shortened. Now, I could preach to you until I was 99 years old, black and blue in the face. And there's obviously people in this community and people that I have dealt with that are so sold out that I was under some sort of a delusion, or that I was incompetent, or that I was a phony, or that I was doing this for the wrong motives. And those will be the people that I won't never ever be able to reach. And those are the people that I'm not trying to reach. Because Jesus said that he did not come for those that needed not a physician, but for those that did need a physician. There are certain people right here within stone throwing distance of where I live that because of their self-righteous, I'm going to use the word intellect, of what that they have been persuaded in believing, and because of the way that this system has been set up over here towards people not no longer relying upon people, but now we rely upon the mega conglomerates of taking care of us, pertaining to our insurance companies and etc. But there's certain people around here that I couldn't reach them. I couldn't reach them if I had a 100-foot pole. Those aren't the people that I'm talking to right now. Because obviously those people have done made up their minds in what they believe and what they don't believe. And those are the people that has jeopardized the rest of our lives and leading us down this endless path to the point of not only financial embarrassment, but all the other things that I talked about, including your climate global deniers that, as far as I'm concerned, are still just as wasted today as what they was 20 plus years ago whenever Al Gore was running for presidency and telling people about the earth changing, that these people to this day are still